How's it going, you guys? Welcome back to the Fumble Live. I'm Devin Howard. You can find me on Instagram as @DevinHoward. Jackie?
I'm Jackie Ray. You can find me on all things social media at JRay the Fanatic.
And I'm Britt Johnson. You can follow me at I am Britt Johnson on all social media.
It's your boy Chris. You can find me everywhere at CK2K.
All right, guys, so we have a big day with news that I'm going to be filling you in on. We're talking about Shaq and how he says that he could have easily beaten Michael Jordan and the Lakers. We're getting into Scottie Pippen and his new employment status. We're also talking about a potential trade that the Vikings and the Browns might be making. And then finally, we're getting into a lawsuit that Ayesha Curry is involved in. Chris, do you want to give us a couple hints as to what's coming up for the post-up?
Absolutely not. No, I'm just kidding. We got Vanessa Bryant is speaking out. She's tired of people using her name, and she got some things to say. We got KD making a big old bet that I feel like is easy money. We're going to talk about that. We got a crazy Jeopardy fail on Jackie Robinson Day. We're talking about that. And D-Lo dropped his all-time starting five. Not all-time five, but his starting five. And it's kind of interesting. We'll talk about that later on Post Up.
Awesome. And then, Jackie, how about for your segment?
So we have a silver lining for 49er fans on the loss of the Super Bowl. Hopefully you guys appreciate it. And also, China baseball is in full swing. We're going to give you a peek into the emptiness of that.
And then, Britt, any hints that you want to drop us?
Yes, this one is going to be so good because finally somebody has done what all of us want to do all the time, and that's give a big middle finger to the NCAA. Wait to tell you guys the story later on.
It's a good one. And then, Jackie, I know you have some stuff coming up this weekend that you wanted to share. Can you?
We all have some stuff coming up this weekend that we want to share. The Jordan documentary is coming out, y'all. And not only that, but we are going to recap that for you guys on Sunday. So make sure you come out and check Chris and I out on that one. We're going to be talking about that. You guys are going to love it because you're going to love the documentary. So you're going to love what we have to say. I'm excited.
I'm so excited.
So excited.
I can't
this
wait.
Is like what? Go ahead.
I literally am planning to make a big Sunday dinner for this. Like, I'm going to make mac and cheese, greens. Like, it's going down. It's going to be like Christmas Day for me. So I'm bringing out all.
Are you going to take a picture?
All the food. Yeah.
Okay, I want to see this.
Maybe I'll send y'all a plate too. I don't know.
That'd
right. Who's going to deliver it?
You know my rule. Just drop it down the street.
I'll get an Uber, and then I'll call the Uber, put it in the car, and then have the Uber go to you guys.
Remember my rule. Just tell them to drop it down the street. I'll go get it. Remember what I said yesterday, okay?
You cannot still be that paranoid. Stop it.
Yesterday, I went down for my walk yesterday, and I come back up to get into my building. Some driver had just left the food outside of the building because there was a whole big bag from Veggie Grill filled with food in it.
So you probably passed my building.
If they left it outside that door though, at least leave it at my front door or something. No.
You passed by my building, so now you know where I live, Britt. That was me.
I'm glad they ordered the veggie thing. I ordered.
Snatch that food up real quick.
Right?
Veggie Grill.
So Pizza Hut is knocking and running. Pizza Hut puts your pizza in a bag, and it's a giant plastic bag that you can put your trash in for the next month. And they set your pizza in front of your door, and then they go knock knock, and they run away. And then if you don't, and then they stand at the end of the hall. If you don't come out, then they call you and be like, "Your food is at the door." It's like a drug deal.
So funny.
I like that a lot better than somebody leaving outside of a building that has 10,000.
Right.
Yeah, somebody else will take it. Right.
True.
Or a homeless guy's just gonna walk up there and snatch it.
Britt, what I want to know is, what did you get from Veggie Grill?
That wasn't my food. I was about to. I was going for a walk outside yesterday because it's been gorgeous out here in LA. So I was doing my walk, and as I was walking up to my building, I just see this giant, and it was a lot of food in there. Somebody had ordered for their whole family, and it was a big bag. And I look in it, it's new food. Somebody just left it outside the door. I was I don't know how long it was out there for. I don't know. I was literally about to snatch it.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, I'm going to jump I'm going to jump in with our first story. It's all about Shaq and how he says that he and his Lakers could have easily beaten Michael Jordan and the Bulls. He thinks it would have been totally simple. Leo, can you play that first clip that I have for you?
Repeat Lakers in your primes would have beaten those Bulls in their primes.
Of course, yes, easily, yeah.
Why?
Because I would have killed Luke Longley, Bill Winning, Cartwright, yeah. So the factor is me and my free throw shooting. So, okay, another question is.
Okay, so the next question that he asked is who Phil Jackson would have been with at the time, and the answer was the Bulls, but he still maintains that they would be the winners. Here's a second clip that I want to play for you guys. Leo, can you throw it up there?
So he would have tried the hack a Shaq thing, which, so I still would have averaged my 28, 29, but the key would have been the free throws. So, with me, it's always 50-50, so hopefully it would have been on. If I'd been on, we win. If I'd been off, we lose. But, I love having these conversations. They would have did this, we would have did that. But I could strictly say I think we would have beat them.
And then finally, he really hammered it in there with an Instagram post that he put up last night. I don't remember exactly what the caption says, but we have images for you of that. But it was something like Lakers all the way. So, Britt, I'm going to start with you because I feel like you have thoughts on this. Could Shaq and Kobe really have taken on Michael Jordan and the Bulls and won? What do you think?
Now, as far as the whole series is concerned, I don't think that they would win the series. I do think that they could actually do well, and maybe they could have taken Jordan to his first Game 7. Because, so I watched, a lot of that interview or whatever, and it was funny because Shaq had also said he was very afraid of Michael Jordan when he got into the league because when he started in the league, Jordan was already big time Jordan at that time, and I was like, oh well, if he's scared of Jordan, then there's no way he could do good against Jordan, right? But when he first went up against Jordan when he was with the Orlando Magic, Shaq had 29 points and 24 rebounds. So I was like, okay, you were scared, but you still played the hell out of the game. So I think he could go up against Jordan and do a great job. And again, they were talking about, Jordan never had there was never a big man that would be able to go up against Shaq, but I still don't think they're going to win in a 7-game series. I think they come close, probably the closest we probably would have ever seen, but they don't win.
Okay, so Jackie and Chris, do you have any, opposing opinions? Chris, can you start?
I just feel like Shaq is very confident in believing he would actually touch the ball. Because if Kobe knows he's going against Michael Jordan, right, it's going to be a hard time for Shaq to touch that ball, even though he's right. It would make the most sense.
One-on-one.
Man, I'm telling you, yes. I agree. I think this would be the first time Michael Jordan would have ever even known what a Game 7 would be like. But I got it. I have to give that slight edge to the Bulls because, even Shaq said, the free throws is the biggest thing. And he even admitted, Phil's going to hack a Shaq. Yeah. And I just feel like they're going to have that little one up because even all the centers he named, those centers they could put the ball in the hoop when Michael got him the opportunity to. So I don't know. I'm going to give the slight edge to the Bulls, but I knew Shaq would come out here with confidence, and no surprise there.
Yeah,
Jackie, where do you stand on all of this?
I mean, I agree with Chris. That was my first thought. I was like, would he even get the ball if they were playing this game? But if by some chance he and Kobe could get on this dynamic duo, Batman and Robin type thing, I think Shaq is right. I think they pull out the win. I just don't see that happening because it would be Kobe's desire to one-up Jordan single-handedly. Right. So I don't think that would happen. But if it did, if they were dynamic duo and firing on all cylinders, yes, I think absolutely they win that.
Okay, interesting thoughts. Let's get into our second news update. So it's all about Scottie Pippen. He was apparently fired from his advisor role with the Bulls. Scottie says that he really didn't want to go public with the info, but he announced it on a podcast that he's no longer employed by the Bulls. The podcast was taped over All-Star Weekend, so it's been a while now since he hasn't been with the team, and he told TMZ Sports that it's, quote, probably a good thing, right? I like to associate myself with winning, so it's a little bit of shade. So here's what happened. The Bulls asked asked him before the season to make numerous commitments throughout the year that would interfere with his role as an analyst on ESPN's The Jump. And then when Scotty was told he wouldn't be getting an increase in salary for his efforts, everything fell apart and the Bulls let him go. So my question for all of you, and Jackie, I'm going to start off with you. Do you think that there was some behind-the-scenes drama here that we're not really hearing about, or do you think it was as simple as they're making it sound like it was?
I mean, if you're asking me to do extra work without extra pay, that's drama to me.
Right.
Especially when that is going to interfere with a job that is paying me, and you knew I had this job off top. So it seems like there's probably some sort of drama, because that's a shady move on behalf of the Bulls to say, hey, we need you to kind of cut back on this ESPN thing and do extra stuff over here, but keep the same pay. That's personal to me. I don't think you do that. I mean, because business people, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. And it don't make sense for me to do extra work for the same amount of pay. So I think there's something else going on. I don't know what it is, though.
So, Chris, do you think that it's strange that they would fire a legend from an advisor role like that?
You're talking to a
guy
that
the Knicks fans that
Hey, don't put that on me. Don't put that right. That's very true, and that's the thing too. Up until they finally got rid of their front, like a lot of the guys in the front office, the Bulls ran just as stupidly as the Knicks in some instances. So yeah, because of who was there, no, I don't find it that odd, because the Bulls have had a rough time in the last few years. But yeah, I agree with Jackie. Like, look, if you're gonna ask me, of all people, I am Scottie Pippen. Okay, only person that you could say above me is Michael Jordan. So if you're gonna ask me to do more stuff and tell me how to delegate my time, and you're gonna pay me the same amount, like I completely get it. So yeah, I find it very odd that they feel like they had the higher ground by letting him go, and it's the whole thing is just weird over there at the Bulls for sure.
So, okay, Britt, my question for you is, why do you think the Bulls would have expected him to put in all this extra work without any extra pay? Like, where do you think their minds were? What do you think was really going on?
Because he's Scottie Pippen, so that's like a double-edged sword there. So it's like, because he's Scottie Pippen, well, he loves the Bulls. He did all this for the Bulls. He should want to do this out of the kindness of his own heart. But because he's Scottie Pippen, y'all don't need to like try to play me like this and try to like you take advantage of the fact that like I have a special place in my heart for the Bulls. Like, that's literally exactly why that happened, is because he's Scottie Pippen, but Scottie Pippen didn't accept that because he's Scottie Pippen.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to jump into our next update. This one's about Odell Beckham Jr. So the Vikings are reportedly in discussion with the Browns to acquire Odell. Mark Malusis, a radio host in New York, tweeted, "Sources told me that the Browns and Vikings are in discussions on a trade that would send Odell to the Vikings for a 2nd and 5th round pick next year. Trade is not done, but the deal is being discussed." Sports Illustrated highlighted all the reasons that we should be skeptical of this news. The Vikings have about $8 million in 2020 cap space right now when you account for the money that they would need to sign their incoming draft picks. Odell has a $14.25 million cap hit. So this would have to be accompanied by another move. They also did just get rid of Stephon Diggs for his diva behavior, and we know that Odell has that kind of reputation for himself as well. But on the field, it would probably be a good move for the Vikings. But here's the kicker. Multiple members from the Vikings organization said that this was completely false, not accurate information at all. But if it is true, would this be a good move? Chris, where do you stand?
Oh, you starting with me? I thought you would go straight to Jackie.
That's what I thought too. I was ready.
Look, when I saw it too, I thought, I don't know. It's so hard to buy all these rumors because I feel like on this show alone, we've talked about every team in the NFL possibly being a good fit or a good spot for Odell Beckham Jr. and making some sort of deal in some sort of way. Yeah. And to me, this was just another one, especially where it was coming from. It's like, I don't know if I'm believing this or not, especially when the team has them out there modeling their new jerseys and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just, to me, I didn't really buy into it. But I'm so interested and so ready to hear how Jackie spins this into another way to get ODB out of, or Odell Beckham Jr., excuse me, OBJ out of.
Dirty what?
Right, no, wrong one. But no, I want to hear this.
So, Mark is me, is what it is. Mark has a bigger platform than me, and he's tired of Odell being in Cleveland, and he's like, I'm going to stir this damn pot myself. if ain't nobody gonna else stir. Because it's not true. It's not a factual thing. Cleveland has said numerous times that every plan that they're putting forth has Odell involved. I and Mark probably like, no, Odell, give a damn about their plans. Get out. So Mark was like, I'm gonna put this out there, but everyone has proven that. And the Vikings, ironically, are not a place that I would think he would be a good fit personally. So if I'm sending Odell anywhere, I am not sending him to Minnesota. And I want him to get out of Cleveland at all costs, but I'm not sending him to Minnesota. So shouts out to Mark for doing what I couldn't do. So I appreciate you stirring that pot, but stir it a little harder next time. Send him to a different team where they go, maybe. Not the Vikings.
Like, Kirk Cousins, really? Kirk Cousins? Like, I honestly, that's lower than freaking Baker to me. Like, I would not send any receiver that's supposed to be this elite receiver to Kirk Cousins. Like, period, point blank. It's like totally, I mean, it's 100% false. I never at 1 second believed it to be true, whether who said it or who didn't say it, but even just them confirming it. Obviously, I don't care about the confirming it thing because nobody's going to, like, tell your next move in chess. You're just not going to do that. I don't think any organization that has any, like, kind of sense of, like, knowing what the league is about, you never say your move before you make it. So I don't think that they would say they're going to do that unless it's already a done deal. But I literally, it doesn't make any sense. Not only the cap space, like, you would have to not just get rid of a semi-decent player, you'd have to get rid of a good player because it has to be somebody that's like $6-7 million that you owe them for this next year. And then that doesn't include what you're going to need to do in the draft. So you're losing another player. And you also then don't get anything that you can replace them with. Like, that position's just going to go off to some possible, like, rookie that you're going to get that it just doesn't make sense at all across the board. Odell is too expensive. He's not going anywhere. I've said that from the beginning. Sorry,
okay. Try really hard. Just try.
But I'll be going nowhere.
Try. Do what you got to do. Give them a discount. Try to get out.
All right, so we have some strong opinions here on the Fumble Live about this news. Anyway, chat, let us know what you think about it obviously in the chat. So now I'm going to move on to our final.
Can I real quick? This one's for you, Chris. Brett, I think you saw it because you're smiling. It says the Browns are the Knicks of the NFL.
No, that's the Cowboys.
Oh, Brett!
Look,
the Cowboys are the Knicks?
I say the Knicks are the Cowboys of the NBA.
The Cowboys at least make it to playoffs usually, and like we're at least better.
When was last time?
We have better
when was
records.
last time?
Last year.
Huh? And then what happened?
Last year. And then we lost to the Rams, who then went on to go to the Super Bowl.
I just say this because of how the reason why. I mean, sure, if you want to go off of that, I'm talking about more so on every little thing is a story when it comes to the Cowboys. As the same way with the Knicks, every little thing is a story with the Knicks.
We also were the two highest grossing.
That was my next one.
A part of our thing. So regardless of more money, more problems.
Although Britt's is a lot more recent than mine was, we both go back to the 2 times, or well, you had more, but the few times that we won championships, and it was a long time for me. Yours was in the 90s, I get that, but mine wasn't a long time ago. But I still hold on to them because the Knicks won regardless. Whatever. I don't care. Topically,
the NFL.
Nah, the Browns. No, Cleveland rep together. Browns are the Cavaliers of the NFL. They were there in their own corner.
Keep Ohio in Ohio.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
But not the Buckeyes. They are not the Ohio State Buckeyes of any. Those are that's the
only winning.
All the Ohio teams.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to take us into our final need-to-know news story. So in new legal docs that were obtained by TMZ, Robert Flutie, who owns Flutie Entertainment, is suing Ayesha for $10 million, Ayesha Curry. So she signed a deal with Flutie in 2014, and he helped build her cooking career, and then she cut ties with him last May. At that time, she reportedly attempted to block Flutie from profits and ownership equity in their joint pursuits, and now he's coming after her for $10 million, as well as a 50% interest in her Yardy Girl production company. He's also demanding a stake in her homemade brand. Are you guys surprised to hear that Ayesha is being sued for $10 million? Jackie, I can see you shaking your head no, so can you fill me in on your thoughts?
No, and it's not because she's Ayesha Curry. It's because this is how things go typically when you are this person who really at that time her only claim to fame was she was Steph's wife, you know, and so she had this person come in that literally guided her. And I think that people sometimes they outgrow the person who helped build them. But I would have to see their contracts. Contractually, it doesn't really matter how big you outgrow that person. Right. If they help build you, contractually, you're still financially obligated to give them a percentage. And this happens all the time. People feel like they get too big, that their brand I don't need you no more. I did this by myself. No, the hell you didn't. You didn't do anything by yourself. Because if you could have done it by yourself, the fact that you were Steph's wife would have been all that you needed to do this, you know? So she clearly needed somebody to help build. I would have milked that for all it's worth. And I can't even cook. But anyway, so we're
making some cereal today, guys. Right. I use almond milk.
Grits with sugar. I don't care what y'all say. Grits with sugar.
Cheese.
That's a whole other debate, right?
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, probably like, I don't understand this grits debate. It's a whole debate, though, I'm telling you. I think it happens all the time. And again, I don't think it's an Aisha thing. I think it's a business thing. And I think that sometimes, even if you feel like you get too big, you need to take a step back and look at that contract and see what you're obligated to pay these people, because there's no way that man, and this is his livelihood, and this is what he does for a living, he didn't put some clauses in that contract that you're obligated to him for a few years. So, yeah, no, I'm not surprised at this at all.
Britt, do you think that she'll win the lawsuit, or do you think he will?
They'll settle. But she's not going to win this lock. She's not going to win it. Absolutely not. She owed that man some money. So she should figure out. They need to figure out, like, keep it out of the courts is her best bet. That's her best bet.
You know what's funny? As likable as Steph is, I think Aisha's probably one of the most unlikable people. And no, I'm serious.
It was just a setup.
Almost choked.
People don't like her because she's always saying, like, I remember those comments. She's just like, oh, well, if you are a wife, you should dress like this and you should do this. And then all the new pictures of them coming out with Steph grabbing her butt while she's in a little bathing suit and stuff. Like, I just feel like people just don't really like her that much, you know? And I think this person needed to come in and try to, like, help her image a little bit to get her to become more of a likable person, because I don't think naturally she is, like, very likable, because she kind of always comes off a little judgy, you know, and she always has something to say about stuff where it's like, you just because you got married and whatever, you don't need to be talking about single girls over here talking about, like, you know, she just doesn't, she's not like a girl's girl. She doesn't really come off like that. So I think this guy actually helped her career a huge bit, because Steph had already been in the league for 5 years at that time. Granted, that same year when she signed her contract in 2014, that was the first year Steph became an all-star. So he was, like, not the Steph that we know now at that time. But still, like, if you couldn't just milk the fact that your dude plays in the league or whatever and is one of the most likable guys in the league, and you had to get somebody else to help you, like, build your brand, like, that guy did a lot for your career, honey. Like, because you're not naturally just, like, a person that people gravitate to, because you, a lot earlier on, even more so, you were very judgy, and you said a lot of stuff that people didn't really necessarily, like, we've done stuff on the Fumble about people going in on Aisha for the stuff that she says. So I think this guy helped her out a lot, and he deserves his money. He's owed that, because he did help a lot.
Correct.
Yeah, I feel you on that. It is weird to see how Steph is so well liked, and people, you know, it's hard to dislike him. But then Aisha does have a tendency to say things she comes off like she's trying to seem so wholesome and so pure, but in reality, it's like it can be very hurtful.
It's like backhand compliments all the time.
Yeah, exactly. All right, you guys. Well, that wraps up my segment. So, Chris, let's take it into yours.
Time for the post up with your boy Chris, quarantine edition. Now, Vanessa Bryant, who we know has been going through a lot in 2020 alone, she is ready for US Weekly to get her name out of their mouth, as she should, because when I don't even follow US Weekly, but I was on Snapchat a few days ago, and I saw that they had posted, they turned such an innocent moment with her and her family celebrating Easter into this whole opportunity to make a whole piece about Kobe, and so it was rough. I didn't like it, but this isn't even what this is about. It just so happened to tie to the same Us Weekly, where they had like a little promo or teaser talking about, whenever they're gonna post more updates on what's going on with Vanessa and how she's coping with the death of Kobe and Gigi, and she just simply reposted to her story and responded with "please stop" with a heartbreak emoji. And then that wasn't even the end of it, because they had wrote a piece about her in the in their magazine, and one spot they were talking about pretty much how she's coping, how she's dealing with death, and how she's trying to get through and whatnot. And the line said she's relying on her faith and sister Sophie Lane. Now, according to Vanessa, she has no idea who the Sophie Lane person is. There's no Sophie Lane, and she's like, enough is enough. She added them and she called them out by saying, "Us Weekly, please stop. No story needed. Clearly, we're grieving. I don't know who Sophie Lane is. My last name isn't even Lane." And then she went ... and put sources. And it's just like, to have to deal with what she's been going through this entire year, which is unfortunately 4 months, and then to also, I'm sure she's getting this from all ends, because everybody, unfortunately, her life is news to some people. For her to still have something like to come back and say this politely, but also so like savagely. I just like Vanessa is just she's a warrior now. It's just it's unfortunate that these are the kind of things that people are capitalizing on. So then I'm glad that she said something. Will they listen? Most likely not. But shout to her to get clear her name or get the narrative by the horns before it went in another direction. But yeah, so I just want to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that obviously there's certain people like you don't feel bad when they're getting all this attention, like the Kardashians, for instance. Like, if you don't want people to talk about you, just stay out the light, like don't go to the most popular restaurants or whatever. Literally, Vanessa's like been kind of just chilling. Obviously, we can't go anywhere anyway, so she's kind of just been in the house, like obviously spending time with her girls and her family and stuff like that. So like, it probably is so annoying to get stories that are like, I'm literally not talking to y'all and I'm not doing anything, and you guys are still like coming up with these stories about me, and it makes me like really like hurt for her, because she's like literally doing as she like as she should. She's just kind of like minding her own business, and like obviously just coming out when big moments happen, like Kobe's induction or whatever, and then I'm sure she's going to be making the speech during the actual induction ceremony, which who knows if it's going to be virtually or whatever now, but she's just kind of been saying stuff and coming out in those moments, which is granted, but like she's not a person like how the Kardashians are, where they're like literally throwing their whole lives at you and then later want to be mad that you're talking about them, So I feel bad in that instance, because she's literally staying quiet and just trying to mind her own business.
Just like, let me alone, please.
Right.
I think it's because I wonder, this has got to be the worst time though too, because not only is she grieving, there's literally, as far as sports go, there's nothing else to talk about. So people are, it's happening. I feel like every other day we're talking about some story that somebody made up. And so you can make up a story about Kobe, right? You just did. So if you make up a story about Kobe, true or not, you're going to get the viewership on that. And it's unfortunate that you would want to exploit a situation like that just to get viewership. But I couldn't do it. But,
you know what I'm saying? When you're stretching it, you're trying to make up your own narratives and stuff like that. Like, it's just. Yeah,
she's like, I don't even know who Sophie Lane is.
Yeah,
like that's the worst, though, right?
Yeah,
who is Sophie?
That's rough.
Chat, everybody be on the lookout. Go try to search and find out who this Sophie Lane is.
Sophie Lane. Oh my gosh. Anyways, moving on. Okay, so we know that Quinn Cook, who we've talked about and posted before, we know that he was on the Warriors when KD was on the Warriors, so they still got a friendship and they're still really close. They were on a live together the other day, and they were just talking about, like make believe 1v1s and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, this Lance Stevenson versus Victor Oladipo one just caught fire because they were this was a debate. This was a heated debate going on back and forth to the point where Kevin Durant was like, and to me, I don't even see this as a crazy bet, but he's like, I would put $50K on Vic. The conversation was because Victor Oladipo is still coming back from the knee surgery and he's not 100%. So maybe Lance might have a chance and he might take him. But Kevin Durant was killing that instantly. Here's the video. Here's the conversation between KD and Quinn Cook.
Victor Oladipo and Lance Stevenson for 50,000. Yeah, I need parts of that. I want to see that. I need parts of that. I don't got Lance Stevenson. I don't got Lance Stevenson leaving DC with 50K.
Yes, sir.
I don't got that happening. He's not coming down there and winning 50K off Vic. No way.
No way?
No way.
Nah, Vic.
It's just different levels now. There's different levels now. Lance can do it, but come on. I got 50 on Vic.
You got 50 on Vic?
Yeah, let me go back.
Say no more. If I get to the ball.
I don't know this conversation. I don't care one leg, two leg. Like Lance Stevenson is not a joke. He's a good player, but to me, this conversation is just the two-time All-Star Victor Oladipo. Even when I thought this conversation was crazy. I see KD is right to bet the 50K, but hopefully we get this actual 1v1. I don't know when, but I would love to see it. I think it'll be dope because it'll be funny because Lance Stevenson is entertaining, born ready. So that'd be pretty funny. We also saw Dion Waiters talk about it too, but that we're not gonna waste any time. We're not.
Waiters.
Nope, we are gonna move off of that at all. We entertain him enough.
I'm done with him. We already talked about him for the
week. We're done.
In a month.
Dion Waiters' quota is done until 2021. All right, on to the next one. Well, Sharif, we were talking about Shaq earlier, but now Sharif is officially following after his pops, and he is going to be an LSU Tiger. I love it. Yeah, this poor guy's been jumping around, since the heart surgery. He was initially supposed to go to Arizona, but then when the coach had the scandals and everything that was going on, he decided to bow out of that, then go to UCLA, where he just did not fit in the UCLA system. So then he decided to now go to LSU and be a Tiger, and it was made official yesterday when they tweeted this picture, as you're seeing right there, with "It's official, Sharif O'Neal will look good in purple and gold, #boot up." I like it. I like it a lot. And Sharif, being the class act that he is, he showed some love to UCLA by tweeting, "I would like to thank UCLA for everything they have done for me. You guys will always be family to me. I will miss you guys." And he did the peace emoji. I love it. The only negative I have is I just feel like we're gonna hear his dad did this against this team, and we'll see if Sharif will do the same thing. And those are the only things I'm not looking forward to, because just let Sharif be Sharif. But other than that, I think it's gonna be dope. I wholeheartedly expect him to get his minutes and get his time. I think it's dope. Shout out to Sharif. Congratulations, bro.
Yeah. I think it's cool because I used to work in Louisiana as a sports reporter out there, and so I had to cover LSU. My very first interview ever there was with Ben Simmons, actually. But right outside of the stadium or the arena is a giant statue of Shaq. That's Shaq's bill. And really there haven't been a ton of basketball players that have came out of LSU. It's not a huge basketball school, so when Ben Simmons came out, he was like a huge deal there. So literally all the energy is going to be around Sharif, which is going to be interesting to see how he handles that. But I just want to say this: poor John Wooden is tossing in his grave right now at what UCLA has become. I just can't. No kid has been successful there. Kids keep leaving. They'll try to sign because I want to play in LA or whatever. But that program has just gone from being one of the top basketball programs. They still have the most championships of all teams in the NCAA. Even more than Duke and UNC and all that stuff. UCLA was so good at a point to where they still run that, even though they haven't been good in 15 plus years. It's so sad to see this program be so terrible at basketball. John Wooden literally turning over in his grave.
And I don't want to, because y'all know I'm a Lonzo Ball fan. I don't want to pump him up a little too much. But we gotta remember the last time that they were at least relevant was when he was there. And if you look at the name of the people on that roster next to Lonzo Ball, it was not great. So they were lucky to have the ball boy over there. And then we also know what happened to Jello, but that's a story for another day. Moving on to Serena Williams, who has blessed us with the TikTok that has a lot of back. Now, she sings back a few times in the TikTok, and she shows us her back. I don't have to explain any more than that. Run the TikTok, Leo.
Well,
there it is.
Hello, I'm back. I'm gonna stick this in the microwave for 2 minutes. Speaking of bags, my dress doesn't fit in the bag.
I love she did Brit's favorite thing. She posted it on IG. She posted her TikTok on IG. But the redeeming quality for me was her caption, and she simply put "Snow back," and I thought that was dope because she's Snow White, but her back was showing. I was like, that's funny. So welcome to TikTok, Serena. Wasn't a lot going on in the TikTok.
That was terrible.
There was nothing going on.
So everyone's trying to be nice right now, but that was a terrible TikTok.
It wasn't great. It wasn't much going on.
But she tried though. I thought it was cute that she tried to be Snow White. You know, Snow White cooks and cleans. Well, no, you're right. That's
I just want to know what you're cooking up in the microwave.
That's what I think. I was like, well, you're trying to pretend to be Snow White who cooks and cleans, and then you throw in like, I'm throwing this in the microwave. No, oven. Throw it in the oven.
Yeah, exactly. Because everyone, because Serena gets the most grief,
Right.
Yeah, so she was playing also, but it's just funny. And Serena. Anyways, moving on to this next one. This one to me, it's so hard for me to get mad at people getting sports questions wrong on Jeopardy because you just know that they honestly don't know. But this poor girl, I don't know who misled her to believe that Babe Ruth was a brother. You know what?
She didn't know nothing else. She had to know he wasn't black, right?
Because if you don't know anything else, saying. Because the question clearly, you know what? Leo, can we hear the Jeopardy question, please? Can we run the audio on that?
One of the topics covered in a Major League Baseball course at Arizona State is this player who broke the color barrier in 1947. Shauka.
Who is Babe Ruth?
No. Nathaniel.
Who is Jackie Robinson?
Yes.
That's the best part. Right after, and he said it so unimpressed, like, Jackie Robinson. I was like, that is so good. I thought this nigga was so funny, but man,
The girl goes to USC, hello, in front of Dodger Stadium, there's a big Jack Robinson big deal. How do you not? I'm just so confused.
I'm literally. If she didn't know who Jackie Robinson is, I would be like, how you not know that? But I'd be okay with it if you knew that Babe Ruth was white.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't know nothing else. Know that.
Right. The question even said color barrier. I'm like, yo, you missed a huge part.
I did a little research. That girl actually won that episode. She won the whole thing. So I don't know.
They had no more Black History questions on there.
Sports, I guess. And then the shade of Jeopardy, though, to air that yesterday on Jackie Robinson.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
The best part is Jeopardy purposely shaded her because that's a pre-taped episode, right? So they purposely aired that yesterday to be like, look what this girl did.
Yeah, right. Look at this girl. Oh my goodness. And then to win on top of it, oh my goodness. Anyways, last but not least, we were talking about sorry, I know you already I'm not gonna say it. We were talking about He Who Shall Not Be Named's top 5 yesterday. But today we're talking about D-Lo, who dropped his all-time starting 5, meaning point guard, shooting guard, But his list was very centered around more recent players outside of the one that should be on there, MJ. I want you guys to hear his starting 5, and then we'll discuss briefly at the end. So can we hear this audio, please?
Starting 5 right now, all-time players.
All-time
starting 5 right now.
MJ, Cole, Steph.
Gotta put Steph in there.
Got to, bro. Steph. Bron.
So you got facts.
It's hard to put Shaq and not KD though, bro. I'm telling you.
That's what I was thinking too.
hard to put Shaq and not KD, but I mean, you just watch dudes dominate the game at that level. It's crazy. Man, it's hard to put. It's those two right there. I mean, that's how I believe it.
They like neck and neck, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so his 5 was he had MJ, Steph, Kobe, LeBron, and either Shaq or KD. Now, again, this was not his all-time 5. He asked him his starting 5. So either Shaq or KD will be playing his center. To each their own, I guess. Like I like the names. I think we should save this for Homer for another day, where we'll talk about our starting 5s at some point. We'll do that. But just briefly, do you have any words for young D'Lo on his starting 5?
I think he should learn what a 1 through 5 is.
Yeah. He's stuck on Shaq or KD. I know KD tall. But anyway,
not the
Mr. On D'Lo, I hope Minnesota's treating you right. On that note, I hand it over to you, Ms. Jackie Ray, for WTF Moments.
I like it. You handed it over to me on a confusion note, and we're going to stick with that confusion note because it seems like there is a doctor that's trying to have the 49er fans look on the bright side. I think it's a reach, but hey, I'm not a doctor. So we have a doctor that is saying because the 49ers lost the Super Bowl, they actually saved lives. Sam Hustis posted this to his Twitter saying, UCSF professor of medicine described how the 49ers losing the Super Bowl 54 might have saved lives during the coronavirus outbreak. He had the 49ers won, and there were parades and parties at that time that may have had an impact that I haven't seen actually described. That's what the doctor said. But let's take a listen to something else he said in this video.
Actually described. It's a date that I will never forget because the Super Bowl Sunday was actually the night that we stood up formally our command center. And the reason for that was another, it's funny to call it a gift, but the gift of we had 2 of the first patients in the country that required hospitalization. And they arrived in the middle of the night. I will never forget sitting in that ambulance bay when those first 2 patients rolled up, a husband and wife who looked terrified because of everything around them. And it also forced our organization to we were in the game quickly.
Okay, so let's just get the timeline of this first and foremost. So the first confirmed case in the U.S. was January 19th. That was in Washington, right? So the Super Bowl was February 2nd. We had countless Clippers games, Lakers games all over the country, Warriors, everybody. Sadly, also, Kobe passed away on the 26th, and thousands of us gathered for that. And then his memorial, again, on the 24th. Not to mention that people are going grocery shopping. They're going to work. They're still going to clubs, bars, business as usual. So, Chris, I'm going to ask you, do you think that to say for the 49ers not winning and not having parades and things of that nature was a stretch? Or did it actually save lives?
No, that's a stretch because, like you said, because it would have happened if at the most a week after the Super Bowl. So
at the most,
and like you just named a bunch of other events that had a lot of people. I don't know. To me, this is a stretch. I feel like this just goes along with I feel like the pretty much the topic of the day is just people trying to make something out of nothing. I get what he's trying to say. But it just with the time frame and things that happened between the Super Bowl and when things started getting serious, I don't know. I feel like that's a bit of a stretch. A bit of a stretch.
Right? Does it bother you that it's a doctor that's saying this, or does that kind of solidify what he's saying to you?
I think he's looking at it as because the day of the Super Bowl was the day that I think San Francisco or Bay Area had their first person test positive, and then in Kansas City they didn't have their first person test positive till March 19th. So I think they're saying in Kansas City it wouldn't have happened there wouldn't have been anybody contaminated or whatever there at that point, but it's easier because in LA or whatever in the Bay Area we have people flying here from all over the world because it's more of hub international airports versus Kansas City is smack dab in the middle of the country. People aren't flying from China or Europe or whatever straight into Kansas City. So I think that's kind of where he was going with it. Obviously, I was in Miami for the Super Bowl. There were way more Kansas City fans there than there were 49er fans. But obviously the parade might have been, I don't know, they're thinking people that like could have just traveled from Europe or something and come to the Bay Area. And in Kansas City, obviously people went to Miami and they went back to Kansas City and then they had their parade there.
Right.
And we saw the police chases during the parade and all that fun stuff.
Wild.
But like they didn't have anything else going on. So I think that's probably where he's trying to get his logic from, is just saying that because the Bay Area has so many people that travel more and do more things versus Kansas City is just people that literally, if they did go to the Super Bowl, they just went there and back and they're not really out and about. But Miami is an international airport too,
right.
So they could have had come in contact with people there and then brought it to Kansas City. So I don't know. I think he's trying to put logic to something. It is a reach, but I kind of get where he's coming from.
Yeah, I just feel like, especially since we know that a lot of people have it and don't know, that just to say that this missing out on this one parade and these parties really had a huge impact. I don't know. It seemed a little far-reaching. But let me get to my last one really quick. But this one's going to be tough for me because considering how China is treating their Africans, I don't give a damn what they doing out there with their sports. Let me just say that first and foremost. Now that I have to talk about this, we told you guys last week, they are moving forward with their baseball team having mannequins in the stands. And now we have, aside from that weird thing, they're having these cheerleaders also cheer to these mannequins. So let's take a look at that video. Now we can't do the sound, because we don't want any copyright infringements, but let's just give it a second and we can see how desperately they are in need of some African influence. Because this is sad and troubling. Sad and troubling.
When do they have like cheerleaders at baseball anyway? That's like so awkward. That's not even like a normal thing to have. Like cheerleaders at baseball?
I mean, we did it in high school. We cheered at high school baseball.
Y'all cheered at baseball?
We did. We cheered at high school baseball. We cheered at soccer. We cheered at wrestling matches.
No, we're bored.
We cheered. We look. I think they was like, we gonna get these cheerleaders, get their money's worth. But yeah, we cheered at literally everything. I think the only thing we didn't cheer at was like debate matches.
Wait, I have a question. I have a question about their dance moves. Maybe this was written in an article that you read about it, Jackie, but did it seem like they were doing a lot of like hand washing motions?
Like, what were the lyrics? Wash your hands.
They did
and
then they did the Janet Jackson. They did the Janet Jackson.
That's what's going on.
I've never seen cheer like that ever in my life.
That was
I haven't. They look more like our Palm Squad, but then they did cheerleaders, but whatever. But they went from having like barely any fans to now they have like 26,000. They're doing all right without.
It's doing well. It's doing well.
Yeah. You could do better. Crazy. Hashtag do better with the Africans. But that's all I got. So it's time to move on to Brit's takes.
What's up, guys? I got a good one today. This one makes me really, really happy. We had some sad ones earlier in the week. We've had some, a little bit crazy ones. But this one is probably going to be one of my favorite Brit's takes because finally somebody is doing a big FU to the NCAA, and they couldn't have done it any better. So Jalen Green, shout out first to Jalen Green because he is from Fresno. I went to high school and college in Fresno. He actually went to a different school than I did. He went to Memorial High School, which, if you guys don't know, the Lopez brothers and Quincy Pondexter, who all ended up going into the NBA, all played for the Memorial team the same year. Like, they were all on the team together, 3 future NBA players all on one team together. So Memorial's brought in tons of basketball players. Like, that's a big school. It's probably one of the only private schools in the area, but that's where all the basketball players go in the Central Valley to play basketball, and he is the star. He is actually the #1 prospect for 2020. Like, this guy is, if you haven't heard of him, you just don't know anything. But he's like #1 guy. Like, everybody knows him. He's been great, whatever. He's already won 2 gold medals. He's like killing it, right? So it's time for all these high school kids to put their hat on of what college they're going to go to. Well, no, not Jalen Green. He is now a Pioneer because he has announced he will go to the G League.
Yes.
He will be playing in the G League. So as of October of 2018, the NBA and G League kind of came up with a program to pay ballers to basically forego college and come to the G League instead and play there. And the minimum that they were looking at is $125,000, right? Jalen just signed for $500,000, and this does not include, because he's not going to college, he now can also get endorsements and be signed by Nike or Jordan or whatever the case is. So the $500K is just the beginning of what this guy can make this year. He can do commercials, he can be with Aflac, whoever. Whatever he wants to do, he can do, because he's not going to be playing college ball. Now, this started, like I said, October 2018. So the first season of players that would have been able to benefit from this would have been the 2019 class, because obviously if October 2018, all these kids had already committed and already started school, so they would have been able to just leave and then go to the G League and all this stuff. So the 2019 class was the first class where this could have actually benefited players. But surprisingly, they had G League had a camp, they had all these big time players come or whatever. At the end of the day, not one of those players signed with them. We had, who was it? So of that 2019 class, we had guys like James Wiseman, who ended up going to Memphis. He got suspended very early on in the season, and then on November 20th of 2019, the NCAA announced that after his 12-game suspension, he would be eligible to return to his team if he paid a charity of his choice $11,500. Now, I don't know about y'all, but what 18-year-old has $11,500? So they basically were just kind of like crapping on him, as the NCAA does, and so he ended up having to, in December, sign with an agent and decide, like, I'm just going to go pro or whatever the case is and move on with, like, whatever. But the sad thing is, because then we didn't see him play the last few months, his stock has dropped. Instead of being a tier 1 pick, he's dropped to a tier 2. So it still means he'll probably be a lottery pick, you know, possibly. But, like, who knows what's going to happen, because we didn't get to see him play most of the year. But he was one of the guys that declined the G League deal. Another guy, obviously, RJ Hampton, we know, went to New Zealand, and he signed a contract for $1 million, right? Awesome, great. It went fine for him there. LaMelo Ball wasn't able to go to college because he wasn't eligible, so he was up for a G League option as well, but he decided, as we all know, to go play in Australia. That's worked out fine for him. But my question to you guys is, are these players now, because this is the first player that has decided to take the G League deal, and he is the #1 pick. Shortly after, we all know Isaiah Todd, who decommitted from Michigan a couple days ago. He's a 5-star recruit. He literally is probably 14th ranked or whatever going of the 2020 class. He actually announced right after Green's decision that he is going to take his talents to the G League as well. So we know he decommitted a couple days ago. We knew he was going to go pro. We didn't know if he was going to go overseas. We didn't know if he was going to go play in the G League. He said he is going to be playing in the G League now. So this moment, we now have these players that are going to the G League instead of going overseas. I really believe the G League is the best decision for these players to do, because I get the reason why they were wanting to go overseas is the money, right? With RJ Hampton signing that $1 million contract or whatever, like, that's a ton of money. But if guys like Green, I feel like Green has this vision here. He's this pioneer here. He decided to play in the G League. Obviously, he's getting his $500,000. He gets to stay in the States. He gets to work underneath a team. Supposedly, he's supposed to be going to a Southern California team. It hasn't been announced at this moment. I don't know if it just happened while we were doing the show, but it hasn't been announced at this moment what team, if he's going to be playing with the Clippers G League team, Lakers, who knows what the case is, but he is going to supposedly sign with a Southern California G League team. But this gives him so many more opportunities. If the G League, if more prospects decide to do this route, like Todd and like Green did, then they control, the NBA can control, like, their visibility. They can get these games on TV. They already have deals with these networks like Fox and NBA and TNT and all of this kind of stuff, where they can get these deals to broadcast these G League games, because that's been the biggest, like, take of going to play in the NCAA overseas or with the G League, is because the NCAA has that visibility, and people watch those games. And kids have, till this moment, feel like that's the best way that they can get their draft stock up because they get the most views with college basketball. But with how college basketball has been treating their players, kids are starting to do other options, and when top guys, especially the number one draft or the number one prospect going into college was supposed to go to college decides he's not going to go that route, I think this is the beginning of tons of other kids starting to follow suit and not go to the college route and go G League or overseas. I think G League obviously is going to be the best way because they will be able to create a chance for these kids to get visible. Plus, the more people that watch and the more deals they get done, guess what? That's going to end up being more money. Pretty soon, I feel like these G League players are going to be making more than the minimum salary for the NBA, you know?
Right.
So I think this is like a great opportunity. Shout out to Jalen Green for like literally leading the pack because there are so many options, obviously, for these young players to do right about now. And he was the first guy to decide to do this. Like I said, the 2019 class all declined. All those top guys declined. So I literally feel like he, at this moment today, whatever this date is, I don't even know because I can't pay attention to life anymore. Is it 16th? 15th? Is the 16th?
16th? What's today?
April 16th, 2020. Jalen Green changed the future of basketball forever for kids coming out of high school. I think this is the most amazing thing we have seen in a long time. Shout out to him for taking that huge leap of faith and saying, you know what? I believe in myself, and I believe alone I could come into this league and change it and turn heads and do all this kind of stuff. So shout out to him. I'm so excited to see this. What do you guys think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that he was willing to be a pioneer and go off went left when everybody else is going right. I think it's going to pay off for him. He's going to be filling his bank account with cash. He's going to be getting some great experience, and hopefully he gets the ball rolling for everybody else in future draft classes to do the same thing.
I'm going to say that I think this is great what Jalen's doing. I definitely think he's, changed the perception, but I'm going to go ahead and say that this train was started by LeVar Ball. Like this whole idea of let's forego college, let's not let these kids get ran through by the NCAA. Although he failed, this was definitely his idea. This, he understood off top that this doesn't need to be the end all be all way to get to the NBA. And I think that the powers that be at the NBA realized that train was in motion, and the best way to capitalize on that was to make this an option. I do think that change comes slowly, so that's why you had so many people declining this because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. This has worked for countless other people. This has worked for a lot of, we know a lot of people look up to MJ, so it's like this worked for my hero. Why wouldn't I do this as well? LeBron didn't go to college though, but then they've changed things.
The rules.
So you respect the rules, yeah. So I'm proud of the NBA for making this an option. I'm proud of the NBA, creating this wave of the future, and I'm proud of Jalen being that first to go because I think he's going to be extremely successful, and I think that success is going to be what catapults this, and finally the NCAA is going to get what they got coming to them, and I'm happy about that.
Which is why I want to try and say that I agree. I love everything about the G League, but I still appreciate the NBL, and a lot of these guys that wouldn't even think about going to the NBL because of like the RJs, not even RJ and LaMelo. Before that, year before, we had dude from OKC that played over there and like started this whole trend and stuff like that. Yeah. I just love the options that are outside of having to, exactly like everyone had just said, having to go the black and white route. Okay, high school, go to play the NCAA, get them their money so I can go get my money eventually. No, you can make your own path, and I love that. And
Brandon Jennings did it back when it wasn't popular.
Exactly.
There wasn't any options.
When it was
Brandon
so
Jennings.
foreign. Yes, 100%. Yep. Mm-hmm. And that's why I still respect the NBL because they're one of the few overseas leagues that at least they speak American. Jesus, speak English. Speak American. You hear me? Speak English. Yeah, no, they speak English, and yes, and that they actually have NBA-esque talent because a lot of those guys in those league in the NBL played with they play on summer league teams out in for the NBA. So like there's talent there. Of course, you know, the G League talent, a lot of these guys are on contract for NBA teams that are playing the G League. So I'm just a fan of these guys, you know, breaking ground and doing something different and doing, to me, I feel like the best move for these careers and for these players' careers. And Jalen Green, who, like Britt topped off with, he's not just a player that went to play G League. He was the top. He's top 3 because I think Cade Cunningham was nice too. But he's definitely cream of the crop, or of the players that are going to be in the 2020 draft. So I love it. I'm a huge fan of this. I hope more players follow suit. I just seen that players, you know, next to their, you know, LSU or next to the Michigan hats, you saw them have an NBL shirt or the G League logo. I'm like, yo, this is dope. Like things are changing. I feel like this is such it's such a cool way to go. And, you know, shout out to Jalen Green to be the first to do the G League program that I feel like is going to be very meaningful for not just him but for other players going forward for sure.
Agreed.
Fresno, what up?
All right, you guys. Well, that wraps up our show for the day. Thanks so much for tuning in again. We'll be back tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Subscribe, tap the bell, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment, show us some love, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.